Guys, so today we are going to be talking about veneer, cutting veneer and wrapping it around a ring. So let me tell you a little bit about the ring. This is a single channel ring blank. It's really good for starter outers. I think it's a 8mm in width, and it's a good start out because if you are starting to do veneer, I would suggest you start with a little bit of a bigger piece because the pieces that I were doing were really pain in the butt. Let me also tell you, you're going to need a pencil with a really sharp point, not a dull point like that. You're going to need a measuring tool. You're going to have to also need a little X-Acto type knife. You can use an X-Acto knife or this right here. You're going to need a very thin piece of wood, which is the veneer, and you're also going to be needing one of these right here. So what I would suggest you do is probably take this and use this to measure the width of that, and then measure the width of this. Take your pen or your pencil, whatever, and then measure it out. Hold this down right here and mark it, and then either use an X-Acto knife or one of these to cut it. Normally I like to hold this right here and then cut it, which is a little bit more easier to do. But again, I would suggest you to probably use some really nice gloves, or use a steel one of these instead of a plastic one, because it'll cut right through it and slice your finger off. And no, I have not lost a finger yet. You're going to need this a little bit later on after you cut off the veneer. This veneer, actually, you always cut against the grain, not with the grain, because if you cut against the grain, it's more flimsy and flexible. So when you put it in the boiling water, again, I put it around like normally 3 or 4 on a boiling point in a little pot. Fill the pot up halfway with water, and then put a couple of pieces of veneer in there. Let it boil for around 30 minutes to an hour, and then take it out and dab it off with a little bit of a paper towel, just the water. Then you are going to find something round that's about the size of the ring, as you can see, and you're going to wrap the veneer around this and then tape it to itself. Let it dry for 24 hours with what I would suggest probably paint tape, something to that, and wrap it around. Let it dry for 24 hours to where it gets its own shape. Then you are going to put this on a lathe, and normally people have spacers, but I have actually a piece of wood over here that I actually measured and did myself, because I'm one of the people that aren't very rich and don't have all the things in the world, so I ended up substituting. So I ended up doing that. You put it on that. Then I would suggest you to probably use Loctite for your first entry on your ring blank. Loctite super glue is actually really good. It super duper works awesome. I'm one for not a type of person for patience, so this actually works within at least 3 to 10 seconds or more, or less. No, this goes pretty less actually. But don't get it on your skin. Oh my god, it's terrible. I don't like getting super glue on my skin, whether my fingers are glued together or not, because it's the feeling of my dry skin. It's really weird. Then after you glue the very tip of your piece of wood onto your ring blank, you are going to use CA medium glue, which takes probably about an hour to 3 hours to dry. I normally like to use or wait 3 hours to let it dry, because that's also the time around where it cures. Then after it cures with the CA medium glue, I go over it with a CA thin glue, which actually just locks everything in together, and it works outstanding. Again, probably 1 to 3 hours at most. Now, if your actual wood is sticking out of the top of the ring where the piece of metal is, I don't like to use my main tools, like my metal tools for that. I normally go with a sandpaper, which is 220 or 350 or 315. The higher the sandpaper, the less tougher it is, which I enjoy. So you want a little bit of one in the middle for around 220. You can buy this at Ace Hardware, Lowe's, Home Depot, pretty much anywhere. I normally sand it down, and then when you sand it down, you may have, depending on the depth of this, you may have probably 2 pieces of wood on top of each other. So you may have the problem of actually having holes in your ring, which is really a pain in the butt, which I don't like. That's what happened to my other one, and it just caused so many problems. But I mean, it's fun to do. So if you do have your ring and you're sanding it down and there's just so much sand in it and it's going so fast, it actually burns some of this white stuff that comes off this into the wood. So you always want to take an old used toothbrush or a toothbrush that's never used, something that's really clean, and as your lathe is turning, or if you do it by hand, you can always rub it in circles, or you have the lathe and it's turning, you can always use this, put it underneath it, and it gets pretty much all the stuff off. If you already have holes in it, and let's say you put wax on it and it's just a complete mess like mine was, which caused white spots in my ring when I first did my first veneer ring, I would suggest you go with this stuff called Oops. It gets off tar, lipstick, crayons, gum, ink, adhesive residue, oil, magic marker, and grease. Now, let me let you guys know, I don't know who else is out there that would plan on using this on their hands, because you never know, but please don't. It's not supposed to be used on your hands. That gets off pretty much any type of super glue, CA glue, pretty much anything that you've got that you're having a problem with. So if you, let's say you want to stain it and make this wood darker, let's say I use this on that ring blank, and you want to stain the wood a little bit darker, you can get this stuff at Lowe's, Home Depot, and so on, pretty much anywhere. Not at the dollar store, please don't go there. I got this from my dad's place, and he does woodworking too. But Minwax wood finish is actually a really good wood finish. I did this with my other ring because it had white spots in it, and I was worried of me selling it that would be a problem, because if it's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for the other person. So I figured, why not stain that little area and see if this will work. And it really did. It works wonders. I really like it a lot. They come in different colors, so if you want more of a variety, go to Home Depot or Lowe's. It's a little bit pricey, but not too pricey for just a little tiny can like this. I enjoy using it. This is the best stuff that I've ever used. And then another thing is, if you want to do an all-natural wax just to make it shine, or an all-natural oil to make it shine, I would suggest the Watco Danish oil. The Danish oil is really good to use. I use that after I let the Minwax finish and dry, probably within about 15 minutes or so. I go over with the all-natural oil, and it works wonders too. It's also like a waterproof to where it doesn't make it crack or anything like that, and gives it a rich color and so on, as you can read on the label. Then if, let's say, you have holes in it or whatnot, I would go back to the CA medium glue and fill in those holes and then sand it down. If you do have holes in it, make sure you do this before you put the Danish oil on and the actual other stainer on. Make sure you do that first, and then you can sand it down again. If you do sand it down, I would suggest, this is my first go-to before you actually use sandpaper. It's called EEE Ultra Shine, which is really nice to use. It actually has a sand grit, like, sort of to it, so if other sandpaper is too tough for it, you can always go to this. It's also a wax too, which actually helps everything shine better, and I would prefer this over pretty much anything. I use this on my pens, I use it on my, like, rings and everything, and it works great. It polishes beautifully, and I enjoy this. I wouldn't go to any other polisher ever, and this stuff is actually pretty cheap. I enjoy it. I got this from my dad, and then I'm going to definitely buy more after this is finished. If you want to use a more expensive wax, I can't tell you the name of it, but it comes in 3 different little things. This is the one that I was having a problem with. What you do is what I actually did, which was a pain in the butt. I got a little polisher and I kind of like hooked it up to my drill, which actually works great. But the problem is that the little brush is just so new that it got white stuff stuck in this ring. So I actually had to take the all natural oil and the actual Minwax oil and actually go over this to make certain spots darker because there were white holes in it. And that's when I had to go to the other wax, which I showed you, which was the EE wax, and actually it worked great. So I enjoy doing this ring. Again, I will not do the burl again, which was this actual wood. That's synthetic opal right there, turquoise opal. I enjoy doing that. That's a lot of fun. Some parts of this is like a blackish color and then it goes to a two-tone. It's really pretty and nice. I did have a couple of holes in this, which was a pain in the butt. So again, I went over that with the CA glue, and that was enjoyable, but at the same time it's a pain in the butt going back and forth with the CA glue and the actual wax. So anyway, I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. I learned a lot from somebody going to a woodworking shop because I did not know how to do veneer. I looked up YouTube videos. They said, oh, this is what you do, you cut it this way, but they never told you to go against the grain. Again, go against the grain. It's easier, it's more flexible, and you'll be fine. I hope everybody has a great day and happy turning.